welcome. I hope everyone is doing well. Tonight we are talking rookie drafts and strategies for dynasty leagues in one quarterback and superflex. And tonight we are not alone. We have a guest, a special guest, who is my teammate on the Dynasty Rewind. We have at Nate NFL, Nate Christian. How are you doing tonight?
I am so excited for this. I had this date circled on my calendar. Number one, I love talking rookies. Number two, I love talking with Maddie. And number three, I love talking rookies with Maddie. So this is great.
Yeah, man. And so we have a template that we use for scouting film. What is our overall process you would say for scouting rookies?
Yeah, so I created this template. I started on it probably back like in 2012. Took a couple years off, but came back to it and kind of tried to make it more formula based where I'm doing film grades, but I'm doing film grades on, different aspects of a player's game. And then that is being given a number based on how I feel that's the film. But then that number goes into a formula. That way, yes, there's my bias within how I look at each trait. But at the end of the day, there's a formula across the board for every single prospect that gives an overall grade. So it's a little bit, I'm not saying it's analytical. I'm not throwing a bunch of stats and stuff, but I do have a formula. So I'm somewhat analytical because I like both. I don't think one is necessarily superior to the other.
Yeah, and so when we go into these startups, we have to do rookie drafts. So what is your general strategy regarding rookie picks during a startup?
Yeah. So this is if like I'm doing a startup and I'm drafting kickers as rookie picks, or if there's
Uh,
rookies involved as well.
let's say it's after the NFL draft. You have your future rookie picks, and you're drafting the rookies already. So you are you trading that future first to acquire another pick?
Um, so I don't like to trade my future firsts. I like to keep my first. It's very, very difficult for me to trade my first round pick in any year. Um, Honestly, 2022 might be the best year to trade your first round pick. That's how it's looking at least. But I do not like to trade my first round picks. They just get more valuable. It's never going to have as much value as it will the month of the draft. So, if I'm trading away one, my 2023 first, you're like, okay, that's 2 years from now. I get that. But that's an appreciative asset. The asset's going to just keep gaining value over the next 2 years. And just because I'm giving it away now, unless I'm getting a really great deal and I'm like really convinced I can win it all, because at the end of the day, we're not here to build the best dynasty roster. We're here to win championships. Your team can look really pretty, but if you're not winning championships, why are you playing? That's the whole purpose. So unless it's literally the one thing that's pushing me over to winning a championship, I am not trading away my firsts. Now, that might bite me in the butt, but come on. Every year we get so excited about these first round prospects. Last year you traded away a 2021 first. Hey, now it's a 105 and you're like, okay, it's a mid first. But let's say 105 in a one quarterback even. You're looking at Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith. Maybe your league lets Kyle Pitts fall to the 105. That 105 is so valuable. It's probably much more valuable than whatever you got for the 2021 first last year. I'm in these startups right now. Kyle Pitts went in the fourth round of a tight end premium league, super flex. Kyle Pitts is being talked about as the 101 in some leagues. Jamar Chase, all these guys are going so high. I doubt you got in return something of same value. But if you won your championship, then good on you.
I agree. And when you go into these rookie picks, do you prefer using film grades or analytics? Let's say this is your third round. This is your shot in the dark. Are you using your scouting from your film, or are you going to go to the analytics for, the combine stats, the pro day stats this year? Are you going to look at that?
Yeah, so for myself, I scout like by the end of the offseason, I should have about 100 prospects scouted. So I've scouted through a ton of dudes. So I'm in guys that are undrafted and stuff. But I think once you get to the third or fourth round, when you're starting to throw those draft picks at dart throws, you kind of have to have I'm probably leaning more analytical. With me, I have a couple guys I know I love that are valued in the fourth, fifth round of rookie drafts. To name a few, as you know, I love Puka Williams. He's going to be basically free. I like Jamon Osborne, who no one's ever heard of before. So, I mean, these guys, I'm more than willing to take a shot on the dark later. But I think analytics do a great job of picking out guys who we're not talking about that have similar profiles to guys who have succeeded. I love going to playerprofiler.com and looking at their stats. They have just so many different analytical they have formulas to create like hog rate and stuff like that for college. They also have, all the 40 numbers, all the different things. So I like to go in there when I'm in my third, fourth round, go on playerprofiler.com and, see what's there, see if anyone sticks out. I like that they have the NFL comparison, a player comparison for the similar profile. So I do think, even though I'm more film guy than analytical guy, once I get to those later rounds and I'm starting to run out of names, I am more than willing to take shots on guys who have a nice analytical profile because I trust both. So
Yeah, definitely. I definitely use analytics to help me guide who to watch to scout. Like I'm in love with Rondale Moore this year. He's not only an analytical monster, but he's good on film. So it's nice to see people like that. But when we go into these rookie drafts, what is your general draft strategy? There's best player available. There's fill your positional need. What are you doing?
yeah, so I think this also goes a little bit to what your team's like, but at the end of the day, probably not. I think if you're a contender and you're sitting at the back of the draft, you might want to push up, positional need a bit more. And in that, I'm not saying like, you know, just any position. I'm saying like if you're a contender, you should draft running backs. If you're rebuilding, you should draft wide receivers. That's kind of a very simple statement, but it usually rings true because wide receivers have a longer shelf life. If you're in a rebuild, you're not competing for 2, 3 more years. There's running backs. Yeah, you can draft them. They might gain value. You might be able to flip them for something better. But unless you have a really active league and you feel really confident with your trading abilities, you're probably better off drafting wide receivers. Sure, you might have Jonathan Taylor, but you also might have, Zach Moss. But you could also, if you drafted wide receivers, you have a better shot at getting a better dynasty asset. I mean, look at the wide receivers from the last draft class. You could name like the top 10 wide receivers from the last draft class, and they're all going in the mid to high startup picks. I mean, you could have got
Yeah,
Justin
even
Jefferson, T.
Laviska
Higgins, second
Chenault's
round.
going high.
Yeah. So I like picking wide receivers if I'm in rebuild. If I'm in a contender, I'm drafting running backs because they have a short shelf life. And the most production you're going to get out of those guys is the first 2 or 3 years.
Definitely. And if you're in the third round and you're throwing dart picks, go look at the RotoViz news, and look for the James Robinson kind of news that comes out there, and get those kind of guys. If you're doing an August rookie draft, those late rookie drafts are nice for finding those undrafted free agent gems and being able to draft them in the third. But so when is the optimal time to trade for and trade away rookie picks?
Yeah. So for sure, the optimal time to buy them is midway through the season, early in the season. You have guys who are starting to look at the roster and they're like, yeah, I can win a championship this year. And you have to make this decision early. Like this year in one of my leagues, I realized after 2 games, my team was not going to do anything this year. Now, that might be a little early to make your decision, but if you can make that decision early in the season, it gives you an advantage because I was able to start trading away my veterans in week 3, week 4, before any other team decided that they were going to rebuild. I was already rebuilding. The contenders were already trading away their draft picks. So if you're the first team to rebuild that season, you already probably got the draft picks, and the other teams that are going to rebuild later in the season, or if they try to rebuild after the season, it's already too late to be getting those draft picks for good value. So you pick up those draft picks early in the season while people are excited about the football season, excited about winning a championship, and you just start stockpiling them. Now, if you want to trade those picks away, Some people will say there's no better time than the actual NFL draft. Some will say like, like a week after or something like that, a week before your actual rookie draft. If possible, it's a little hard to pull off, but the best time to trade your draft pick is when you're on the clock. Because you're on the clock, there's a time sensitivity to it, there's a deadline, and you're looking at 108, let's say, and some guy has, I don't know, last year I gave a guy an option of taking 110 from me and him giving me Austin Eckler. Now, it didn't work out, but I was looking to trade away 110 for Austin Eckler on the spot. And I feel like that's a really good deal. If Austin Eckler didn't get hurt this year, that would have been an incredible deal for my contending team. Now, it didn't work out because it's hard to trade on the clock. There's a lot going on. There's stress. People might not want to be making the decision on the spot. But if you can get that value, it is the best time to sell your draft pick because people are the most excited about who's going to be taken at that draft pick when that draft pick is on the clock. They're seeing someone in that queue that they like.
It is. I agree. It's the best time to sell. It's when you're on the clock. That's the best value you'll get for your pick. I've seen some absurd trades pulled off from people on the clock with late first because people are just getting jumpy for guys that are falling. I do get jumpy for guys like Justin Jefferson last year was one of the guys I got jumpy for, which, it paid off. But, there's guys like Daryl Henderson in the past that, you get jumpy for and it doesn't pay off. So it's generally, like Nate said, it's good to sell your rookie picks when you're on the clock because people will get jumpy and buy your picks. So in a super flex league, when should you take your quarterbacks and when should the last quarterback realistically come off the board?
Yeah. This is simple, but I think we always mess it up. Quarterbacks in superflex leagues, most superflex leagues. If you have like a super deep starting lineup, then quarterbacks become a little bit less valuable. Like say you have like 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and a couple flexes. Obviously your quarterback's gonna be less valuable, but in most superflex leagues, those quarterbacks, we saw it this year with the startups this offseason. You have 10, 11 quarterbacks going in the first round of a startup because it's hard to find a good quarterback. You don't want to stream a quarterback. That's no fun in Dynasty. There's better things you can be
It's
doing with your
almost
life.
impossible.
So, in my opinion, they should be the first ones off the board. Last year, you had Joe Burrow and you had Tua coming off the board, and people picked up Clyde. They picked up Jonathan Taylor. They picked up Swift, and those guys are great. They are. But we let Justin Herbert fall to the end of the first. I saw people picking up in the second round of Superflex leagues. Justin Herbert is a top 7, 8 quarterback right now in Dynasty. He's going middle of the first round in startups, and you got him in the end of the first, early second. We're going to see it this year. I'm in a startup right now.
Team too.
Yeah, I'm in a startup right now where we're picking rookies. We're not picking draft picks. We're picking rookies. We are far into the startup. We're in the 8th round. There's still Zach Wilson. There's still Trey Lance. There's still Mac Jones on the board. These guys, yeah, they might not have a team yet. They might have never played an NFL snap yet. But rookie quarterbacks almost always just gain value because they get exciting. A guy like Trey Lance, there's no possible way he does not gain value between now and next offseason. Even if he sits the entire if he sits the entire season, he's going to gain value. So say he goes to a place he's going to be a top 10 pick, it sounds like. Say he goes to the Panthers. All of a sudden, you could be like a first round startup pick without even playing an NFL snap. People are going to get that excited about Trey Lance to the Panthers and Joe Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds crazy, but it's real. If he goes to the Panthers, someone's going to pick him at 112 in the startup because he has that much upside. I love Najee. I love Jonathan Taylor last year. I love Clyde last year. I like Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase this year. But the first 3 or 4 guys should be quarterbacks this year in Superflex. I know people love Kyle Pitts, and I know Kyle Pitts could be the best tight end ever. But even the best tight end goes after the first 12 quarterbacks in the Superflex league in a startup. Travis Kelce and George Kittle.
Yeah, man. I saw Kyle Pitts go ahead of Mac Jones today in a rookie draft. And I was a little shooketh, but I understand people don't like Mac Jones,
I think
but
Mac
I would
Jones
have
is
taken.
kind of that teardrop to his own little tier. And I think, I understand why you don't want to pick him at the 105.
See, this is a rookie only league, so he started in 2020. So you need your quarterbacks. He has Jalen Hurts as his one quarterback, and he should have taken Mac Jones to give him a second quarterback because this is a super flex league. So taking
Yeah.
quarterbacks is a premium. I just didn't understand the pick. But yeah, so in one quarterback, when should you take your quarterbacks?
It really depends year to year. But usually I would say the first quarterback off the board should be first, end of the first. I think last year I was comfortable taking Joe Burrow like at earliest probably 111, 112, kind of the end of that first round if you're a contender and you needed a quarterback because, say you were playing with Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and that's how you won your championship. Yeah, go grab Joe Burrow and solidify your future. This year, I feel comfortable taking Trevor Lawrence at the 108. I think he's that good of a prospect. I wouldn't mind Justin Fields at the end of the first round either in a one quarterback league. I think they're both top 12 dynasty quarterbacks at this point without even playing an NFL snap. So I think you start taking them end of the first, early second, they start coming off the board. Don't overthink it. I mean, yeah, Mac Jones in a one quarterback league he's down there. He's not going to be in the first two rounds. I doubt he's even in the first three
No,
rounds.
yeah,
But in Superflex, he's a first rounder. And so is Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. So they're first rounders and one quarterback. So I think there's a lot wider of a range in one quarterback.
yeah. And in one quarterback leagues, are running backs or wide receivers going to be valued more in rookie drafts?
Running backs every time. Because as I said, running backs have a short life. I like the motto draft running backs, trade for wide receivers because you can trade for. I mean, how many wide receivers are out there right now that you could see finishing as a top 24 wide receiver? Probably about 50, 40 wide receivers that someone could tell you would be a wide receiver to this year and you'd believe it.
There's so
There's
much
a path
talent.
to it. There's so much mid-tier wide receivers. So, but like after like your first 20 running backs, it is rough. And we're losing them every day. I mean, Josh Jacobs, he was that top 20 running back you have in Dynasty, and Kenyon Drake gets signed, and no one wants to touch him. So you got to move quick with these running backs. Some don't even have the whole 4 or 5 years, that first contract. Some only make it 2 or 3 years. So you draft them, you get your production out of them, you flip them before their next contract, and you can flip a guy on his third, fourth year running back. You can flip him for a pretty good wide receiver usually because someone needs running back help all the time.
Yeah, man, and I agree with the running back, and I like the saying that you should trade your running backs for wide receivers because there's a lot of wide receivers out there, and finding a Justin Jefferson is pretty rare. So look, there's like four wide receivers that came off the board before we got Justin Jefferson. Like so, you had to be pretty smart to draft Justin Jefferson in your leagues. So or just dumb lucky, like me. When it comes to the tight ends, when should you be drafting them in both league settings?
Yeah. So let's see. Tight end premium. And like this year is a lot different than last year. With tight end last year, I wasn't touching any of them for a good while. Was not a huge fan of Cole Kmet. I didn't think he offered a ton of upside. I think he was pretty safe pick, but not a guy I want to reach on. And my
He looks pretty
second,
good now.
I mean, he looks solid now. I'm still not saying he's like there's so many tight ends in that like between tight end 6 and tight end 15. I mean, they're all the same. Doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
oh yeah, definitely. I just like Andy Dalton passing to Cole Kmet. I like that
That's a
fit.
nice safe floor right there.
Yeah,
And I liked Harrison Bryant a lot, and I think he's good,
he's
but he's
great.
limited by his offense
He's wide
because
receiver.
there's other tight ends there. So this year we have Kyle Pitts, and we know Kyle Pitts is like a top 3 pick in tight end premium, whether he deserves it or not. I'm not saying he doesn't, but like there's a lot of hype around Kyle Pitts right now. And I'm gonna say I would take Brevin Jordan and Pat Fryermuth in the second round. I'm taking Jordan before Fryermuth, but I think those guys can both go in the second round in tight end premium. In a one quarterback, we already know Kyle Pitts is going top 5, and that's fine. I get it. He can give you an edge at tight end that you don't have with other players. But Brevin Jordan, Pat Fryermuth, once again, I think are second round picks in one quarterback. So this is another instance of just, a teardrop. We have Kyle Pitts, and then there's a teardrop to Jordan and Fryermuth, and then there's a teardrop, I think, to 4 and beyond at tight end. I think those guys are going to go pretty late. There's not really like a great floor with any of those guys yet.
Yeah, and so when it comes to drafting rookies this year, we have to evaluate pro day times. And what are your thoughts on using pro day times this year? And I see like that player profilers adjusting for pro day times and adding seconds on, which they don't really explain. So, how do you use your pro day times?
Yeah. So last year and all the years before that, we always would add like 0.05 seconds to a pro day time. And I felt pretty good about that. That's usually the difference between the combine time and the pro day time. You add 0.05, and that worked out pretty well. But this year, the NFL made an effort to make pro days more consistent across the board. They worked with colleges to give them laser timed 40 material equipment. And when I'm looking at pro days now, I'm not really adding time to them this year. I think most of them are going to be pretty close to the combine time. Now, some will say, oh, well, this college had a hand start and a laser finish, and this college had a laser start and a laser finish. And yeah, I get it. There's always going to be a little bit of variance with pro days. The guys are running on different tracks. I mean, one guy's running inside, one guy's running outside with a headwind. I don't know. Obviously, it's different. It's going to be hard to really compare across the board because they're all doing it in different environments. But overall, I'm not adding anything this year. I'm just taking the official times because we get the unofficial time. I think Travis Etienne's unofficial time was a 4.41. His official time was a 4.45. Player Profiler says it's a 4.50. I'm taking the 4.45. I'm taking the official pro day time. That's what I'm rolling with. I'm not adding anything this year.
Yeah, definitely. I like the pro day times this year. Rondale Moore's pro day times. I'll take him. I'll take him as chalk. I'll say he ran a 4.29. He looked like he was moving. He probably had some headwind, like you said. He was running outside, so he's definitely not running into the wind. That would not be smart. So let's talk about your favorite rookie and why is Puka Williams your running back 6 is the final question.
Oh man, you had to hit me with that one, didn't you? Gonna get me in trouble. All right, so Puka Williams is my running back 6 over guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Jamar Jefferson, and most notably Kenneth Gainwell. That sounds ridiculous. I know. Now, if I'm in the second round of my rookie draft and I'm faced with drafting Kenneth Gainwell or drafting Puka Williams, I'm going to draft Kenneth Gainwell because I'm not stupid. I mean, I understand Puka's value is undrafted most likely in your rookie drafts. I'm hoping he's going to be drafted in the NFL draft. I think he's like a 6th rounder, but yeah, he's my
All your
RB6.
Puka love just went out the window, man.
Dude, he's my RB6. I love Puka. He is a talent. He just needs the opportunity.
Let's say he goes undrafted and he signs in San Francisco. Are you drafting him over Kenneth Gainwell then?
I'm not drafting him over Kenneth Gainwell. Probably ever. Because I know I can get him in the next round. Probably the round after that. But I do all my grades. My film grades are on talent I see on film. It's not including, what I think this player is going to get the opportunity for. The NFL decides that. I don't get to decide where they land. I don't get to decide what offensive coordinator uses them. I don't get to decide their competition on the team. I don't get to decide their work ethic or how they mesh with the coaching style. I mean, that stuff's all out of my hands. So I'm going to work with what I see. I see the tape. I see that Puka is the 6th best running back in this class on the tape. His patience behind the line of scrimmage, his ability to run up the field. He's 175 pounds, I know, but at the end of the day, I don't really care. I don't really care that Devontae Smith is 170 pounds. I don't care that Rondale Moore is 5'7". These guys are
He's
talented.
5'8", basically.
No, they came out and said he wasn't 5'7" 7. He was 5'7" 0. So he is five foot
Ooh.
seven. Jim Nagy came out and said that he talked to the scouts at the pro day, and it was misquoted. He is actually 5'7" on the dot.
Yeah, so maybe he is more of a gadget wide receiver, but if he
I would
plays in
like
the
him coming out of the
slot,
backfield.
yeah, I could see him shift into a satellite back role. That would be really nice if
If
Urban
he gets
Meyer
that
gets his
running
hands on him.
back, if he gets that running back on sleeper, I'm taking that
He's gonna
all
go a
day.
lot higher. Yeah. If Rondale Moore lands in Jacksonville and it's used as a running back, similar and like lined up with James Robinson in the backfield, because they didn't sign Curtis Samuel. That'd be sexy. I
You,
have to say.
if Percy Harvin didn't have migraines and was allowed to smoke weed, he would have been really, really good for fantasy. I know he was up and down. I don't think the Vikings used him to the best of his ability, gave him enough volume. I think the modern NFL is quite different than the NFL that Percy Harvin played in, even though it was only like a decade ago. I think Rondale Moore, especially with Urban Meyer, I think, a landing spot where they're going to use him, just give him touches. He doesn't need, 100 something targets. He doesn't need, a 15, 20 touches a game at running back or wide receiver. It doesn't matter. He only needs a couple touches a game to make a difference. So I think he's going to be just fine. I'm not sure how many shares I'll have of him. It depends on what his ADP is coming to the rookie drafts. I always play the value. So if he's going high, there's probably someone I like more dropping. He's my wide receiver 4 right now. If he gets that running back going, I might have to move things around.
Definitely, man. Good talking to you tonight. We're gonna wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in to. I think this was episode 7, man. This has been a journey, a fun one for sure. And thanks for listening, guys. Every download counts, so I appreciate all of you guys. And take it easy. So we're gonna wrap it up, and hope you enjoyed.